Blog Talk Radio.
The Medlock Post with Richard G. Medlock begins right now.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Medlock Post radio show. This is where we educate, entertain, enlighten, and empower. The views and opinions on the Medlock Post radio show are those of the host and guests. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Blog Talk Radio, Spreaker.com, its corporations, affiliates, or any other podcast streaming services. Thank you for joining the show today, and here is your host, Richard G. Medlock.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we are back finally. Our last episode was on June 30th, and this is July 24th. So a lot of things were going on between then and now, but we'll get into that. This is episode 167, Medlock's Presidential Platform. So we're going to talk about that. There is a fifth dimension beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition. And it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Biden basement. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Biden basement, a fifth dimension that very few people know about, and basically we don't want to go there. Now, I just read to you the opening of the Twilight Zone. I just substituted the Biden basement for the Twilight Zone. Basically, they're one and the same, as far as I'm concerned. It's that crazy. But we're glad to be back. And we the people are one nation under God. Again, episode 167, Medlock's Presidential Platform. The month of July, folks, was not particularly fond of the Medlocks. I started out, and I did the July 30th a salute to America. It was a great program about the 4th of July and so forth. And I was going to take the week of July 4th off. We had some things to do around the house, which we did, most of them. And it turned hot. It finally turned summertime temperatures. It had been pretty mild up until then. But on July 4th, I get a phone call from my great niece telling me that her dad, my nephew, is in the hospital dying. Well, that threw a wrench into everything. And he had a disease. We had been monitoring it. And unfortunately, it decided to accelerate itself. And so he passed away on July 10th, that Monday. And then we had to plan the funeral. I had the funeral on the 14th. And then last week, I was trying to get back and going things, and Tuesday. So I normally don't talk personal things, but I threw my back out. I couldn't walk for 3.5, 4 days. I mean, I could walk, but it wasn't pretty, folks. and I have back problems. But so finally, toward the end of the week, I was starting to feel halfway decent. I did a couple of Sensible Truth programs because they're short, and now Sensible Truth can be heard on Google Podcast, just like the Medlock Post. It takes them forever to process it on Google. Everybody else is like within a couple of hours. It takes them a month or so. And I got the email last week, oh, you're now on Google Podcast. And I went on, and there they were. But anyway, so we're here. I'm glad to be back, feeling a whole lot better. Temperatures are still warm. They're not the hottest temperatures ever recorded, like the news media is trying to tell you that all these people are dying because of the heat thing and all that. It's a bunch of baloney, folks. And the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Organization, NOAA, has come out and said it's a bunch of baloney. And if we have time today, on the next show, I'll talk about the climate stuff. There's a lot of things to disprove all these fallacies that are being thrown at us about this climate change stuff. And I have some questions for you to think about on that, but not today. I didn't watch news for almost 2 weeks. I was so busy with everything else and taking care of priorities at the time. My great niece, who was 20, and my brother and his wife are deceased. So it was my wife and I had to take care of doing the funeral, which is no problem. I've done many in the past, spoke at a lot of funerals, but we took care of it. And there were a lot of people there. My nephew was well liked. He was a great guy. He was 49. He was loyal. If you were his friend, he was loyal to you no matter what. And he was a hard worker. And I talked with a couple of his employers, and they said you could depend on him for everything. If he said he was going to do it, he did it. So that was my nephew. We will miss him. So now I've got my niece. She's engaged, and to help her with that, then my niece, my nephew's sister, older sister, told me that in the middle of all that, she has the same disease, but they've caught it early. But again, it's a disease that progresses, and there's no way to stop it. So anyway, so that's what we've been going through. But I'm here. I had a long conversation with a friend this morning I hadn't talked to in probably 3 years, really talked to. And I finally said, look, I got to get off the phone. I have a show to go do. And he's going to be part of what we're doing here. He's really good at it. And you might not hear his voice, but he will be in the background. So we're bringing him on board to help us with so many things that we're lacking. Okay, the news cycle. Turned the TV on one morning. A 2-week miss, 10-day, 2 weeks, something like that. I felt like I was watching what I was watching the last time I watched news. It was the same stuff. Nothing had changed. New information about Hunter Biden. Joe Biden's doing this. This and this and this. This and this and this. It was all the same thing. The same narrative. The same template. Everything. And I said, well, I'll wait a couple of days, turn it on again. It was the same thing. And it's still the same. I hadn't watched any today, but it's probably still the same thing today. And it's gotten to the point, I think, that they've inundated us with the fact that we had the most corrupt government in the history of America, that most people just don't care anymore. They don't. Well, nothing's going to happen. We can't do anything. Nobody's going to jail. They're going after Trump. Okay, fine. They're going to put him in jail. Big deal. Is that what's going on? I just wanted to throw that out there. My thoughts. You know, some of you are starting to learn how my mind operates. I question things. I look at things. And my buddy and I that were talking this morning, and I said, well, wait a minute, let's put it in this other context. He says, I never thought of it like that. And on and on. I will have him on the show one day. You'll hear he and I, how we work together. We've done that in the past. And it's a phenomenal thing to see his mind and my mind just not uniting, but becoming almost a unison of a train of thought and building on each other. Right now, in America, we're in a presidential campaign mode, whether you like it or not. And I think maybe that's something I'm going to write this down while I'm thinking of it. Add it to my platform, and I'll just make 3 little word note. I know what it is, and I'll insert it at the right time. I wrote this platform in 2012. I announced then on my previous radio show that I was going to run for president. That's the time when you had Obama and Mitt Romney running for president. Well, neither one was worth supporting. So I announced I was going to run for president. Well, I got a lot of feedback, a lot of support, and I did a presidential platform, Medlock's presidential platform. I've kind of updated it through the years. And the last couple of days, I thought about this, and I've been updating it. And here's another note I'm making here. See, it's fluid, folks. So I wanted to run this by you, put it out there, because a lot of these things nobody is talking about. So sometimes we wonder, does anybody really want real change? I think that's a question that we need to ask these candidates. Do you really want change? Well, I think some of you could sit there and say, well, I think Donald Trump does. I think Vivek Ramaswamy wants real change. But who else wants change? I'm not sure anybody else on either side fits into that category of really wanting change. All right, so let me start here. Here's my opening short paragraph on my platform. The United States Constitution is the law of the land or the rule of law. All laws or regulations shall comply with the basis established by the Founding Fathers set forth in the Constitution and Declaration of Independence. The power and scope of the federal government was granted by the states or by we the people with a limited structure. It is vital for the United States of America to return to and operate under the success of that system. And folks, it was successful for 150 years. It's going back to what the Founding Fathers said, John Adams and Samuel Adams and Adam Smith and others, that laws that we make, that the government makes, should be in line with the Constitution and natural law, which is the Creator's law. If they're not in line with those, they are bad laws. So if we started categorizing the laws on the books, we could eliminate a whole ton of laws. Item number 1. Now, this is being talked about, but not seriously. Abolish the current United States income tax code. Replace with a national sales tax, or some now call it fair tax, of a rate of 7 to 10% to be determined. Okay, 7% was in 2012. Now, at that time, I had some friends in the IRS, and they told me they were for a fair tax because they said at 7% fair tax on everything sold, the government would raise 4 times more money than they're raising today. The IRS has done these studies. 4 times more than they're spending or raising today on the income tax. Why? Because the income tax, only the top 25% of the people are paying most of the taxes. And 50% of the people pay zero tax. Where under the fair tax, everybody pays tax every time they purchase something. Now, well, what about a flat tax? A flat tax is 10%. Most people, it's 10%. Some are 15%. A flat tax, let's just use 10% on your income. But again, it goes back that the people that are paying now will be the only ones paying to gasoline tax as well. All estate and investment taxes will be eliminated. The Social Security and Medicare deductions will stay in place. This will not affect any state taxes. The states have their own ability to do what they want, right? 10th Amendment of the Constitution. There will be no increases in the sales tax without a national referendum and the people voting for the increase. We, the people, have a say. And if they want to propose, let's do a penny tax to pay for this, and we will raise it for 2 years, then after 2 years, that tax stops. Where now, let's raise it a penny tax for the roads or whatever, it never goes away. Item number 2. Repeal the 17th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Each state's legislature will appoint their 2 senators as originally set up when the Constitution was ratified. This so as to protect the state's rights. That's why it was originally set up that way, so the senators would go to the Washington, D.C. and protect the states from the House of Representatives. We're there to represent the state and to protect state rights. When the 17th Amendment took effect in 1913, that protection went away. And we've seen the ramifications of that and the results ever since. Item number 3. And if we don't get through all these today, I'll pick it up on the next program. Number 3, abolish lobbying. Abolish lobbyists. Groups that have an interest in a proposed bill can submit a written opinion that will be given to all representatives to review. Period. Nobody walking the halls, nobody paying off people, no quid pro quo, no nothing. Represent your home state, your home district, whatever it is, the way you're supposed to. Number 4, term limits. Yeah, there's talk about that, the Convention of States and so forth. Senators will serve 2 terms and representatives will serve 3 terms. That's what they're talking about. Just you serve 2 terms and then you serve 3 terms as a representative. Because a senator is 6 years and a representative is 2 years. So you do it 3 times or twice. Now, this is where I get into a big difference with a lot of people, but they like this. There's a lot of support for this. At the end of the term, the elected officials and their staff will be replaced by the newly elected officials. Their staff leaves too. Not only the elected official whose term is up, or when he gets voted out, he might get voted out after his first term. His staff goes with him. Period. And they cannot be hired and brought back. After the term has expired, there will be no more payments or benefits. None. Like today, you go up there and you are a senator for a week and you resign, you get all the full benefits the rest of your life. That's wrong. But anyway, no payments, no benefits. Staff will be only half of the current number of staff members. Do you know how many people are on these staffs up there? It's astronomical. No, we cut it in half to start with. If you are currently in office, the limits will apply to all. No grandfathering, none. Once an elected representative loses an election or their term is up, they have no more voting rights in Congress. Now, why do I say that? We can go back and see over the last 50, 75, 100 years, the time from the election period to which is November, to January, a lot of bad bills get passed by the parties in power that it will be out of power come January 2nd. So you just got voted out of office. You have no more voting rights. None. Number 5, there will be a balanced budget amendment with a line item veto by the president. Now, the Congress can override that veto with 2/3 vote by each house. Both houses have to vote to override that veto. 2/3 vote. As long as there is a budget deficit, all elected officials will only receive 1/4 of their salaries. Or another way is say, we will pay you minimum wage, which is $7.15. You get minimum wage. Well, if you don't like that, you can resign and go back to your regular job. Number 6, the United States will no longer financially support the United Nations. We will also request they move their headquarters to another nation. We don't want you. You're no good. You don't do anybody any good. You're trying to take over the world. You're trying to take over the United States and run it. We don't want you. We're not going to financially support you anymore. Goodbye. Number 7, there will be an immediate 20% pay cut to all federal employees, including elected officials. There will also be an immediate 15% personnel cut in each agency. Number 8, all agencies will submit a written statement of their purpose and the need for the number of employees they have. And why do you need 5,000 employees? They will have 30 days to submit the overview, or the White House will make the decision. There will be only one agency for their purpose instead of duplicate agencies. The main goal is to reduce federal employment the first year by 30% minimum. Now, let's take a look at some of these agencies that are duplications. In the EPA, I think there's like 20 or 30 duplications out there, and on, that's not needed. It's just to bring your good buddies or your family in for a good paying job. Number 9, the Senate and the House will revert to the simple rules of submitting a bill to the appropriate committee. When the committee approves a bill, it will be presented to the whole body for a vote. One person will no longer be able to stop a bill from coming to the floor for a vote. When a bill is passed, it will be presented to the other body for a vote. If changes are made in the bill, it will go back to the joint committee to work out the differences and re-voted on. Now, why do I say one person? The Speaker of the House can just refuse to bring a bill up for a vote. The President of the Senate can refuse to bring a bill up for a vote because he doesn't like it. No more. If the committee has approved it and it's out of committee, it goes to a vote. Bring it up. Let it vote. Let it pass or not pass. Number 10, all bills will be a stand-alone bill, especially budget and or financial bills. No amendments to that particular specific subject. No more pig amendments. No more adding to the budget. No more quid pro quo stuff added to it. And hide stuff from the rest of us, because that's what they do with it. Number 11, federal judges will serve a 7-year term instead of a life term appointment, except for Supreme Court justices. Number 12, all regulations will be reviewed and dealt with immediately, especially regulations that have been put out there without congressional approval. They will automatically cease and desist because they are unconstitutional. So the Supreme Court has ruled many times on that if Congress didn't give you authority to do that regulation, you can't do it. Do you know how many regulations would disappear, ladies and gentlemen? Thousands. And the cost to the American public and corporations would decrease in the billions. Number 13, the Federal Reserve Bank will be audited. The Federal Reserve Bank will be phased out over a 2-year period, and the U.S. Congress will be in charge of printing money as originally outlined in the United States Constitution. Central banks will be done away with. And we might take that phased out over a 2-year period and make it a 1-year period if we can do that, but no longer than a 2-year period. Number 14, the United States will adopt the gold standard. We've got to solidify our dollar, our monetary system. Number 15, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, who are totally out of control, will be evaluated and adjusted to meet the needs of the markets today. They will be highly regulated and watched over. Number 16, all federal lands shall be given back to the states except for national parks. And that might be done over a period of time with the national parks. But to start with, all federal lands will go back to the state. Number 17, state rights will be restored. Now, folks, that covers a multitude of things. Control of your education system, control of your roads, control of your energy, control of everything goes back to the states. And we cover that in a few other things. Number 18, drill, baby, drill. Oil and gas exploration in the Gulf of Mexico will be restored, and other offshore drilling will be evaluated. All subsidies to ethanol production will be eliminated, and the requirement for 40% of the corn crop going to ethanol production will be reversed. Drilling in Alaska will be approved along with other regions in the United States. Gasoline will only have 2 or 3 mixes. Every state requiring their own mixture, like California, Illinois, and others. Number 19, all subsidies by the federal government will be reviewed within the first 90 days and phased out as circumstances permit. Now, subsidies. This is where the federal government has used our tax money to get control of businesses and universities and schools and so forth. We'll subsidize you, but you do what we tell you to do or you lose this money. Well, that's caused a lot of headaches and a lot of problems and brought a lot of Marxism into this world, into this country. So subsidies will stop. Number 20, states will be given authority and a control of their education system. The federal government will disband the Department of Education. It's been nothing but a travesty since it was created in 1979 under Jimmy Carter. Parents will have a school choice option. You either get your school straightened out or there's school choice. Number 21, the United States military will be strengthened, not wokeized like it's been today. Number 22, workers will not be required to pay union dues. It is a free market work situation. '23, there will be no, let me emphasize, no bailouts of private industries. You go bad, you go bad. We're not going to bail you out. It's not the government's role to bail out bad decisions. And if you weren't able to make the adjustments and keep up with the changes, then you deserve to go out of business. I know that's a harsh statement, but no bailouts from the government. The welfare system will be remade. Entitlements will not be a right or a privilege, but the welfare system will be a short-term help until you get your feet back on the ground, like it used to be. But now it's a way of life. You can live your whole life on welfare, and that's wrong. 25. Government employees' pay will be based on the average of the same similar position in the private sector. None of this inflated salaries for jobs you really don't do much. Public sector employees will contribute to their benefits commensurate as the private sector employees. No more government benefit plan. They've got to invest in one just like everybody else does. 26. Repeal the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. Yes, repeal it. It was one vote away from being repealed under Trump, but John McCain committed treason, went against his word that he gave to Donald Trump that he would vote to repeal it, and he didn't. It will be repealed. Number 27, repeal the Dodd-Frank Banking Act bill. It's atrocious. And also repeal the Sarbanes-Oxley accounting system, which is atrocious. And I talked to a lot of CPAs and accountants, and they agree with those things being repealed. 28. Abortion shall be stopped except in the case of rape, incest, or the life of the mother is at risk. Now, steps have been taken there on the federal basis to stop abortions, although we have a government that's trying to go around and skirt those decisions. Should have been the ruling originally in 1972. It's a states' rights issue, and it's up to each state. And that's where it is today. Item number 29. Waste in government spending will be dealt with severely. There will be an accounting of every penny. There's none of this going to the Pentagon and they don't know where $8 billion went. Oh, they know where it went. They just didn't keep a record of it. Okay, fine. Those in charge of that, you're now going to be charged with, what's the word? Stealing the money. And you're going to jail if you cannot account for $8 billion. Just like when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, all of a sudden, $10 billion went missing. And it's never been accounted for. Imagine that. But we're going to hold them accountable. This is not your money. It's taxpayers' money. You were allotted so much in the federal budget, and you stick to that budget and account for every penny. Item number 30, and we're almost there. Employees of the United States of America have sworn an oath to uphold, sustain, defend, and support the Constitution of the United States, whether you're an employee or an elected employee. Any federal employee in violation of this oath can and will face felony charges up to and including treason for violating that oath. That is a sacred oath to the United States, to we the people, that you will do everything in your power to uphold the Constitution and defend it. Now, how many people up there today do you think would be charged? Yeah, a whole bunch. Number 31. To register to vote, proof of citizenship and photo ID will be required. If you don't have those, you don't get to register to vote. Voter ID will be required at time of voting. Donald Trump wanted a national voter ID law for presidential elections. And the then Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, would not push the bill through. It was written, it was there, and he would not let it come up for a vote because he was a Marxist and a rhino. It's easy, folks. All voter rolls are to be done away with. Let's take today. All voter rolls are done away with. Between now and next September or October, you need to go register to vote in person. No more registering to vote when you get a driver's license. No more registering to vote online. You've got to go down in person, prove your citizenship, and have a photo ID. And prove who you are. You know how many voting people that would take off the rolls if we did it that way? Millions. And then you know how fast the borders would close? Because they're not new voters now. The paper ballot system will be restored. Do away with this computer thing. I was against it to start with. Go back to paper ballots. Number 32. The borders of the United States will be secured and federal immigration laws will be followed and enforced. Now, let's go back to the voting thing. When there's an election, like I said earlier, we're in the campaign mode right now. We get through one election, they're already campaigning for the next election. I like what they do in Europe. You can only campaign 90 days prior to the election. No ads, no nothing. 90 days prior to the election. It's just, okay. Number 33, no federal minimum wage. Let the states set their own minimum wage. Actually, I'm for letting the market set the wage. It varies from state to state and even areas within the state. Just like retail pricing. Let the competition set the wage, not laws. Well, that could really get out of hand. Some places they pay $1 an hour. Then nobody works for them, and they go out of business. Item number 4 and last item: get the federal government out of our lives. Period. The way it's supposed to be. Limited power, limited government. Not the federal government sticking its nose into everything. That's what they've done with subsidies. That's what they've done with the states. They literally have states on federal welfare. People in the state government tell me if we didn't have that federal money, we'd have to shut down the schools. Well, you know what? Redo your budgets. You're wasting money. You're spending $29,000 a year per student, and what are they learning? They're not learning. They're being indoctrinated. Stop it. Spend $15,000 per student and teach them. Educate them. So what are we fighting today? What are we fighting out there? Let me summarize this. Success is castigated. Christian and Judeo-moral values, morals and values and beliefs are laughed at and scoffed at and called old-fashioned and show weakness in a person. Marriage between a man and a woman is called out of date and not necessary. Education has turned into indoctrination. Evil and perversion are applauded and accepted and promoted. Abraham Lincoln said this as we get ready to close out here. My concern is not whether God is on our side. My greatest concern is to be on God's side, for God is always right. So we need to be on God's side, and we'll never go wrong. This is my platform, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody else is talking about this. We will continue to talk about this. It's important. It's to get you to think. It's to get you to have conversations with your neighbors and friends and family. Talk about repealing the 17th Amendment, term limits, taxation. Let's do the fair tax. It makes sense. I have people out there that are against it because they think, oh, we're going to add that on top of the income tax. No, we're not. Income tax is done away with. We're going to basically shut down the Internal Revenue Service. We don't need them anymore. Talk about abolishing lobbyists. They're the ones controlling Washington, D.C. They're the ones controlling what goes into bills. Our congressmen and senators, they don't think. They obey. We don't need that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what the Medlock Post is about. It's doing the right things for the right reasons. For our country, for our families, for our God. That's what this is all about. America the Beautiful. Let's keep it beautiful. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Medlock Post for July 24th, 2023. May God bless America.